Jai Gurudev Brahmaraji. I would need someone to read the shlokas or chant the shlokas. I can start with the Om chanting and
Yeah,
couple
I'll
of
do the
prayers.
chanting. 1 second. Om. 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 Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gaganasadrisham Tattvamasyadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalachalam Sarvadhi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Satgurum Tam Namami Shrutismritipurananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Sadashivasamaramбham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam Vande Guru-paramparam Narayanam namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudírayet Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Om Shri Krishna Paramatmane Namaha अथ श्रीमद्भगवद्गीता अष्टादशोऽध्यायः मोक्षसंन्यासयोगः श्रीभगवानुवाच Just give me a second. Are you able to share these shlokas, Sumaji?
I'm not able to. I'll have to go to my mail. If someone else has it handy, please, I'll have it ready from tomorrow.
No issues. Today I will chant from the book. This is from the 44th verse onwards. स्वे स्वे कर्मण्यभिरतः संसिद्धिं लभते नरः स्वकर्मनिरतः सिद्धिं यथा विन्दति तच्छृणु यतः प्रवृत्तिर्भूतानां येन सर्वमिदं ततं स्वकर्मणा तमभ्यर्च्य सिद्धिं विन्दति मानवः श्रेयान् स्वधर्मो विगुणः परधर्मात् स्वनुष्ठितात् स्वभावनियतं कर्म कुर्वन्नाप्नोति किल्बिषम् सहजं कर्म कौन्तेय सदोषमपि न त्यजेत् सर्वारम्भा हि दोषेण धूमेनाग्निरिवावृताः असक्तबुद्धिः सर्वत्र जितात्मा विगतस्पृहः नैष्कर्म्यसिद्धिं परमां सन्न्यासेनाधिगच्छति सिद्धिं प्राप्तो यथा ब्रह्मा तथाप्नोति निबोध मे समासेनैव कौन्तेय निष्ठा ज्ञानस्य या परा बुद्ध्या विशुद्धया युक्तो धृत्यात्मानं नियम्य च शब्दादीन् विषयान् त्यक्त्वा रागद्वेषौ व्युदस्य च विविक्तसेवी लघ्वाशी यत वाक्कायमानसः ध्यानयोगपरो नित्यं वैराग्यं समुपाश्रितः अहङ्कारं बलं दर्पं कामं क्रोधं परिग्रहं विमुच्य निर्ममः शान्तो ब्रह्मभूयाय कल्पते ब्रह्मभूतः प्रसन्नात्मा न शोचति न काङ्क्षति समः सर्वेषु भूतेषु मद्भक्तिं लभते परां भक्त्या मामभिजानाति यावान्यश्चास्मि तत्त्वतः ततो मां तत्त्वतो ज्ञात्वा विशते तदनन्तरम् सर्वकर्माण्यपि सदा कुर्वाणो मद्व्यपाश्रयः मत्प्रसादात् तवाप्नोति शाश्वतं पदमव्ययम् ओम तत्सत्
Should we start from verse 50? We did that yesterday, but it was quite a bit.
Yeah, I think we'll start from there.
You have to read it, please. Siddhim prapto
सिद्धिं
yata.
सिद्धिं
No, no, you read it.
प्राप्तो यथा ब्रह्मा तथाप्नोति निबोध मे समासेनैव कौन्तेय निष्ठा ज्ञानस्य या परा
Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Arjuna, Siddhim praptaha. the one who has gained the accomplishment of Antakarana Shuddhi. Yata. How? Jnanasya ya paranishta. That which is the ultimate certainty of knowledge. Brahman, apnoti. He gains. Tata. Just so. Samasena eva. Just in brief. Me nibodha. Learn from me. Kaunteya siddhim praptaha yata jnanasya ya paranishta brahma apnoti tata samasena nibodha. How the one who has gained the accomplishment of Antakarna Shuddhi gains the ultimate knowledge, ultimate certainty of the knowledge, that is Brahman. Learn from me in brief, O son of Kunti. I'll read this again. How the one who has gained the accomplishment of Antakarna Shuddhi gains the ultimate certainty of the knowledge, that is Brahman. Learn from me in brief, O son of Kunti. Here the accomplishment, Siddhi, is preparedness of the mind, Antakarna Shuddhi. Shankara says that it is characterized by an eligibility of the body and senses for a commitment to knowledge, and that eligibility is the result of the grace earned by worshipping Ishvara through doing one's own duty. So, this is earned by worshipping Ishvara through doing one's own duty. This restatement of what was said before, Swakarmana tam abhyarcha siddhim vintati manavaha, is for the sake of what comes later. Sarvadharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. What is born of the grace of Ishvara is that his mind, body, and senses do not create any disturbance in him. This is the greatest grace that you can think of. If you look into it, it amounts to looking at yourself nicely rather than looking down upon yourself. We always think we need grace for this and that, but all we really require is that the mind, body, and senses are available for us when we need them. This implies not only mental purity, Antakarna Shuddhi, but the cooperation of the body too. If the body falls apart, what is the use of mind having grace? You need not enjoy an especially healthy body, but then it should be available to serve the needs of your pursuit and not interfere with it. The mind must be clean and the body should be fit. Both of these require grace. What is it that the one who has gained this accomplishment, Siddhim Praptaha, going to accomplish later? He gains Brahman, Brahmapnoti, in the form of certainty of knowledge. How does he gain that? What is the means whereby this Karma Yogi, enjoying this accomplishment of mental purity, but who nevertheless considers himself a doer, karta, gains the knowledge of Brahman? Lord Krishna says, please understand from me. Is he going to start another 17 chapters? No, he is going to explain it briefly. Samasena. All that he has said before is going to be presented in an essential form so that Arjuna can keep it in his mind and do what is to be done. Gain of Brahman is nothing but certainty of knowledge. What is that gain of Brahman, Brahma Prapti? It is nothing but knowledge of Brahman. What is the ultimate end of knowledge? Jnanasya ya paranishta. The culmination of a pursuit is its nishta. Generally, the pursuit of knowledge has no end to it. You come to know only a little more than what you know, what you knew before, and even more about what you do not know. Previously, you did not know that you did not know, and now you know something about how much you do not know. Thus, there is no end to any type of knowledge except knowledge of the self, Atma. Because Atma is partless, you cannot have partial knowledge of Atma and still call it knowledge. It is possible to be mistaken about Atma because it is always available, Nitya Prasiddha. But it is not possible to have partial knowledge of the real nature of Atma, it being totally free from parts. Therefore, knowledge of the Atma is the only knowledge that has culmination, Nishta. Every other knowledge is inconclusive. It has parts because the object of any knowledge necessarily has attributes. Being dependent on something else, mithya, any object of knowledge is nothing but attribute. So being dependent on something else, mithya, any object of knowledge is nothing but attribute. There is no substantiative in the world for everything that we call a substantiative becomes an attribute upon inquiry, implying another substantiative. In a clay pot, pot is only an attribute of the substantiative clay. But even the clay is not a substantiative. It is only an attribute of the substantiative called atom. Any form is going to be reducible like this. Therefore, the formless alone can be a substantiative, and that happens to be yourself. Knowledge of yourself, then, is the only conclusive knowledge possible, and therefore the most exalted, para. In what order you will gain that knowledge? Bhagavan is going to tell here, and thus he draws the attention of Arjuna saying, listen to me, nibodhame. But first, Shankara has a very interesting and important bhashya here, which we will look into carefully. Please let me know if I should read anything again or if we should break for Manana. What is the nature of Jnana Nishta? Shankara has characterized the certainty of knowledge, Jnana Nishta, as where the knowledge of Brahman ends. Now the question is raised, what is the nature of this certainty of knowledge, Jnana Nishta? Shankara says that in whichever form the knowledge of Atma is, the certainty, Nishta, is in that form. What we are calling Jnana Nishta is not different from knowledge of Atma. The next question is, what is the nature of this knowledge of Atma, Atma Jnana? Atma Jnana. Shankara says that whatever the nature of Atma is, that is the nature of Jnana, of Atma Jnana. So whatever is the nature of Atma is, that is the nature of Atma Jnana. Between the knowledge of Atma and Atma, there cannot be any difference. For knowledge is always as pure, as true as the object. If one asks, what is the nature of this Atma? Shankara says that it is in the form in which it was told by Bhagavan through the sentences of the Gita as well as the Upanishads, and by reasoning, here Shankara can answer that the nature of Atma is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. But he does not, because his topic is the nature of knowledge. We should also make a note that when Shankara talks of reasoning, here he means that what is said should be reasonable. What is said by the Shastra is examined and ascertained to be not against reason. If any other interpretation of Atma is proposed, he will show the fallacy in that proposal through reasoning. Is Atmajnana possible? Since Atma has no form, self-knowledge is not possible. So objection to that? An objection is raised here. It has been said that knowledge is always in the form of the object of knowledge. The knowledge of a pot, for example, is going to be as good as the pot. In that, when you know a pot, the knowledge you have of the pot will be in keeping with the nature of the pot. It cannot be different. If it is, you will not understand the pot as a pot. Therefore, it is well known that knowledge assumes the form of the object. But nowhere it is accepted that Atma is an object or that it has a form. The self is not an object, because if it were, who would be the subject? Being yourself, Atma, is never an object which you can objectify. So being yourself, Atma is never an object which you can objectify. By nature, it is not subject to objectification. In that case, it is not an object. How are you going to gain knowledge of it when knowledge is always in keeping with the object? Further, for knowledge to take place, the object of knowledge must have a form. But Atma, according to you, as pure consciousness, has no form. If Atma neither has a form nor is an object, how are you going to know it? It is not like a pot, which is both an object and has a form, therefore can be known. Even an atom has its known attribute through which you can know it, because you can objectify it, not sensorily but inferentially. It is an object of knowledge for you, the subject which is distinct from what you objectify. You are not an atom. You are objectifying an atom, and it is identifiable in a given form. But what about Atma? It has no particular form, nor is it an object. How are you going to gain knowledge of that Atma? If you cannot gain knowledge it, if you cannot gain the knowledge itself, where is the question of gaining Atmanishta, Jnana-nishta? Where is the question of gaining Jnana-nishta, the certainty of that knowledge? Do you want me to read again, or any thoughts?
So it is very clear that Atma cannot be objectified because it is you, it is I. So unlike any other object that can be objectified, If Atma is an object, then who is the subject? Here, the subject and object is the same. Which is why Swami Dayananda, if you remember, when he was giving us, when we listened to his Nirvana Shatakam, he said there are only two things, Atma and Anatma. There are only two things. So, everything else is Anatma. Whatever is self-evident is Atma. And all that is Anatma is just an illusion upon the Atma. Like the snake on the rope. So there is only one truth, and that is the Atma. And that getting that knowledge ascertained is this Jnana Nishta.
Can you explain, Brahmaraji, that knowing the Brahman is the knowing the knowledge of Brahman? That 2-3 sentences was there, no? Can you explain that?
Do you want to read those sentences again, Sumaji?
Yeah. Where does it come? Gain of Brahman is nothing but certainty of knowledge. What is the gain of Brahman? Brahma Prapti. It is nothing but knowledge of Brahman, which is the ultimate end of knowledge. Jnanasya ya para nishta. The culmination of a pursuit is its nishta. Generally, the pursuit of knowledge has no end to it. You come to know only a little more than what you knew before, and even more about what you do not know. Previously, you did not know that you did not know, and now you know something about how much you do not know. Thus, there is no end to any type of knowledge except knowledge of the self, Atma, because Atma is partless. You cannot have partial knowledge of Atma and still call it knowledge. It is possible to be mistaken about Atma because it is always available, Nitya Prasiddha. But it is not possible to have partial knowledge of the real nature of Atma, it being totally free from parts. Therefore, knowledge of the Atma is the only knowledge that has culmination, Nishta. Every other knowledge is inconclusive. It has parts because the object of any knowledge necessarily has attributes. Being dependent on something else, Nitya. Any object of knowledge is nothing but attribute. There is no substantiative in the world. For everything that we call a substantiative becomes an attribute upon enquiry implying another substantiative. In a clay pot, pot is only an attribute of the substantiative clay. But even the clay is not a substantiative. It is only an attribute of the substantiative called atom. Any form is going to be reducible like this. Therefore, the formless alone can be substantiative, and that happens to be yourself. Knowledge of yourself, then, is the only conclusive knowledge possible, and therefore the most exalted, para. In what order you will gain that knowledge? Bhagavan is going to tell you here. Thus, he draws the attention of Arjuna saying, listen to me, Nibodhame.
Okay, we can continue. Thank you.
So any other worldly knowledge is always incomplete. You can get more and more, like what we find in science right now. Earlier we learned atoms are made of protons, neutrons, electrons. But now the current concept of our atoms is totally different. They talk of wavelengths and so that knowledge is never ending. Whereas the only knowledge that culminates in completion is Atmajnana. There is no more wanting to know. Once person has realized that he is none other than the Atma, that completes it. So you cannot have part knowledge of Atma. Like for instance, you cannot say, with respect to the rope and the snake, you cannot say once you know that when the light is shone and you know that the illusion of the rope you thought was a snake is no longer a snake, the snake completely vanishes. What remains is just the knowledge of the rope. It is not part. You cannot say, okay, part of the rope is the part of the snake. It's not like that. So that knowledge, when that knowledge dawns, it is complete. There's no more wanting to know.
An Ekadashi's view that it does have a form. Someone offers an answer here, citing the Shastra, a meditator, an Upasaka, says that Atma does have a form. What is that form? It is in the form of the sun, Aditya Varna. It is in the form of light, Bharupa. It is self-shining, Swayam Jyoti. If Atma is in the form of self-shining light, he argues it must have a form because fire, whose nature is light, is the first element in the sequence of creation that has form. The first element is space, Akasha. Second is air, Vayu, neither of which has a form. Next is fire, Agni, which is the first to have a form. Since Atma is said to be light, the special property of fire, why should we not consider that Atma has a form? Another Ekatashi's view, another participant in the discussion answers that this is not true because such statements are meant only to negate the inertness which is opposed to consciousness. Such statements are meant only to negate the inertness which is opposed to consciousness. They point out that Atma is not inert, Jada, and is beyond the darkness of ignorance. Tamasaha parastat. Tamasaha parastat. The Shruti specifically says this immediately after saying it is like the sun, Aditya Varna, in order to say that it is not ignorance, nor is it inert, nor does it need to be illumined by anything else. He explains that it forms like substance and attributes. He explains that if forms like substance and attribute are negated from Atma, one can conclude that it is in the form of ignorance or darkness. He explains that if forms like substance and attribute are negated from Atma, one can conclude that it is in the form of ignorance or darkness. It is to negate this argument that these statements are made. Besides, that form is specifically negated by very clear statement such as arupa, without form. We had a doubt on this yesterday, no? That if Atma is Arupa, how do we call it as, how do we say that it is self-luminous and Aditya Varna and it is Swayam Prakasham and all. Remember? We had a doubt yesterday. So I
It is,
asked,
yeah,
yeah,
it is
yeah, you go
simple.
ahead.
Anything that we see or perceive is not self. See, we see the body, so therefore we are not the body. We see the mind, we see the intellect, we perceive the ego. So we are none of those. So what remains, the one that sees. I'm not sure whether I'm able to get this point across. So the whatever is seen is apart from that subject, right? That is why we're able to see it. So when you keep negating it one by one, layer by layer, like how Ramana Maharshi says, keep questioning who is this I. Then that when that small I merges with that big I, that is when you realize that you're none other than the subject. The problem here is of misidentification. We are wrongly identifying ourselves with our body, mind, intellect, and ego. That's because of the illusion, because of ignorance. But once that avidya, that cover of avidya is removed, what remains is only the subject, where the seer, the seen, and the whole process of seeing merge together. Right? So when you're looking at the Ekadashi saying it's Aditya Varna, which means it is something that you can perceive, which is not right, isn't it? You're limiting Atma to a form. You're limiting Atma to light, because that is what you perceive, but it is beyond that.
Last night I had an opportunity to get this doubt cleared. When he said it was a wow for me, I asked the same question, that when we say Atma is Arupa and attributeless, no form and no attributes, how do I relate to this self-luminous Aditya Varna? So he said that Atma is Arupa, is one of the forms of Atma. Because he said Atma is present in all forms and is also formless. So when you say Atma is formless, Arupa, that is one form of Atma. And that is where we are trying to gain understanding of that Arupa. And in that pursuit, we ultimately merge with that knowledge. The knowledge becomes you, or you become that knowledge. Till then, you keep going, he said. So I felt I never looked at Arupa as a form of the Atma. He said, Bhagwan, we say Sahasra Naams, so he's present everywhere. So he's present in every form and he's also formless. So even this formless is a form of Bhagavan. And to know that is the ultimate pursuit. Or to gain that experiential wisdom is the pursuit, he said. So it made sense to me.
Yeah. In one of the Bhanuma's bhajan, Arupo Rupoham, Arupo Rupoham, like one sentence come, no? When you were speaking about this, that struck me now.
Chidananda Rupa Swarupoham. In that
Swarupoham,
only it is coming. Arupa Swarupoham.
Yeah.
No,
Sumaji,
it is
who said that? Yesterday
Arupa
you
bhi
told?
hu, Rupa bhi hu, Arupa bhi hu.
Oh,
That
yes.
man who comes in,
Correct.
मैं हूँ सफर भी, मैं हूँ मुस्कान भी.
Correct.
रूप भी हूँ, अरूप भी हूँ. Like
Sumaji,
that.
who said it? You told yesterday?
Yeah, I'm attending Vishnu Sahasranamam
In
chanting
that,
and learning.
okay. Mm.
Yeah. So the teacher there, uh, he can quote any, whether it is Bhagavatam or Ramayanam or Mahabharatam, he can just quote anything instantly. So I asked
Sumaji,
this
are you attending Denver's course, that John Warner's?
Jim Warner. Yeah.
Jim Warner, yes. Yeah. I heard your
I know,
question
I've seen you
yesterday.
there.
The last week question. You asked
Yeah.
that, which one was that? That Turiya.
Super consciousness, yeah. Turiya.
I thought that you were that.
Yeah. Yeah, I did ask that.
I'm
I've
attending
seen you
that.
many times. Okay.
Okay, good. The Turiya
So,
is the same thing, the fourth stage. And the fifth stage is
cosmic consciousness.
Samatva Bhava means oneness with other thing. That is the
Okay.
fifth stage. That is what Guruji said that.
Okay.
Okay, good. Thank you. I identified your voice. Thank you.
I am attending so many knowledge sessions.
Yes, same thing. I am also doing
Get
it.
some clarity in my head.
Okay, good. Very nice. Thank you.
So yeah, this Arupa as another form of God, of Atma, I didn't think until yesterday when he said that. So I thought I'll share it, and it is so beautiful, no? So there is nothing that you can be away from. That Atma is not away from anything. And to reach that Arupa, Nanaji also said, no, you go through, what is that? From the form, you go to the formless. What is the word he used? Nanaji said, no? I can't remember now. He said that you do the upasana of the form, and that will ultimately lead you to the formless. So you keep going, and even after reaching there, it has to get established. That is where this jnana nishta is. That completes that knowledge. Till then, you have to keep doing it. And once you do it, you don't have to do it after that. Once this jnana nishta is established in you, then you don't have to do anything. So all this I got mental clarity yesterday.
Yeah, that is what the 46th verse says, no? Yata pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. So whatever that which is pervading in and through all aspects of creation.
Saguna Brahma. This is what Nanaji said. Go from Saguna Brahma to Nirguna Brahma. Yeah. Yeah. Very nice.
Hey Gurudev, I recall this, Gurudev was mentioning Asti, Bhati, Priti, Nama, Rupa. Universe is made of these 5 aspects. So this Maya is the one which comes and doesn't allow us to see this Asti, Bhati and Priti. And we are stuck with Nama and Rupa. I was just recollecting this in this verse. Thank you, Jay.
There is a Marathi bhajan also. Nirgunache bheti alo saguna sange. It's a very beautiful bhajan by some saint.
Meaning Nirguna se beti.
Nirgunache bheti means to merge into the Nirguna. I'm coming with Saguna Sange means Sagun ke with the Saguna, and then I'm getting merged into the Nirguna kind of. That is a bhajan some Maharashtra saint from Maharashtra has.
Bheti is meeting.
To meet
Yeah,
the
meeting.
to meet the formless, I'm coming with the
Oh,
formless.
very nice. So
And
beautiful.
then Jhalo Prasangi Gunatita. I became beyond the Trigunas. The next line is निर्गुणाचे भेटी आलो सगुणा संगे तव झालो. उसके बाद गुणातीत के बाद. Yeah.
Can you share that in
म्हणे
the group?
गोरा कुंभार. It is
Yes,
गोरा कुंभार. गोरा कुंभार.
Share it in a group, Madhuri.
Sure, sure. I will share it. Yes.
घाला त्याच्यात फार छान वाटेल.
नक्की नक्की.
So, Shankara answers, Atma can never become an object. Further, there is form only for an object that you can objectify. And there are equally unambiguous statements that say that Atma is not available for any objectification. Statements like, there is nothing equivalent to its form. No one sees it with the eye. Na sandrse tishtati rupam asya na chakshusa pashyati kaschana enam. Somebody please read it properly. Na sandrishe. Yeah.
तिष्ठ रूपम अस्य न चक्षुषा पश्यति कश्चन एनम.
See here, there's so much quote from Purusha Sukta, Kathopanishad, Bhagavatam, everything. And without sound, without touch, ashabdam asprashyam, tell us that Atma is free from being an object of our sight, our ears, our senses of touch, or any other sense organ. From all these statements of the Shruti, we understand that Atma is an object. Therefore, he concludes, knowledge enjoying the form of Atma is not tenable. How can there be knowledge of Atma when it is well known that any given cognition is of the form of that given object? And Atma has been repeatedly said to be without form. Nirakara. Knowledge must be in keeping with the object. If it is knowledge of a pot, it is in the form of a pot. If it is knowledge of a cloth, it is in the form of a cloth. Thus, each piece of knowledge is in the form of the object. But here, we are talking about an Atma that is free from form. And thus, knowledge of Atma is not possible. Having argued that both Atma and knowledge of Atma have no form, his question is, how are you going to gain self-knowledge, Atmanyana? Leave alone Nishta in that knowledge. For Nishta, you need to contemplate upon the knowledge in order to make it certain. What can you contemplate upon here? It is something like saying that cancer can be cured by an extract of rabbit's horn. Similarly, if you gain Atmanyana, samsara will disappear. The only problem is it is not possible. How are you going to gain Atmanyana when Atma is neither an object for you to know, nor has a form for you to objectify? Once I know it, I am free. But then Atma is not available for such knowledge. Therefore, there is no moksha by knowledge, and we have to look for another solution. It is pointless to talk about contemplation because to be contemplated upon, the Atma must have some form. But it is formless. Without a form, there is no cognition. vritti, and without a cognition, what are you going to contemplate upon to gain nishta? If I ask you, think of Atma, what will you think of? If it has a form, if it is like a flame or like a sound, it is possible to think of it, but it has no form. What are you going to think of?
So this is
Even if
the Purva Pakshi's stand, isn't it? So we need to follow this line of reading carefully. This is what the Ekadashi's view. This is another Ekadashi's view, isn't it, Sumaji?
no.
Yes,
Go back to
he said no.
the heading of the
Yeah,
paragraph.
he said
No,
how to know the gain the Atma.
this
He
is
was
Shankara's
going
view.
to tell. Hmm.
One
No,
Ekadashi says it is that light, in the form of light and Aditya Varnam. But the other Ekadashi says that is not correct. It is only said for you to negate it. And Atma is Arupa, another Ekadashi says. Now, Shankara explains this answer, saying that Atma can never be an object. So, this is Shankara's explanation.
that
That Atma,
cancer, that what is that? That I cannot understand. Or
that is, cancer can be cured by an extract from a rabbit's horn. There is no rabbit's horn. So, how are you going to?
cure
So,
the
where is
cancer?
the extract? Yeah. So, Shankara says, when you know that Atma has no form, on what are you going to contemplate upon? And how will you get nishta when you don't have anything to contemplate upon? Because Atma has no form. So, what are you going to think of?
I think we will have to read further to get the whole idea of what Shankara is trying to mention here.
Hmm.
In
Even if
Madhava
Atma can, huh?
Sorry, continue.
Okay. Even if Atma cannot be objectified, its existence is well known. Shankara answers this in the following manner. He says that the conclusion that has been reached is not true. While it is true that Atma is not available for objectification, its presence is available. It is known to you because it is self-evident. It is present in the mind, buddhi, which has the capacity to reflect consciousness, which is Atma. So beautiful. The whole argument of the opponent here is on the basis of Atma not being an object because it has no form. True, it has no form, but it exists in spite of it not being an object and having no particular attribute, still it exists. How do we know this? Like your face in a mirror, the consciousness that is Atma is reflected in the buddhi because it is made up of a subtle substance that has the capacity to reflect consciousness. The reflection or manifestation of consciousness in the buddhi is non-separate from the consciousness that is Atma. So the consciousness in the buddhi is non-separate from the consciousness that is Atma. That this is because the reflection and the Atma are one and the same. There is no reflection which is totally separate from the vastu, because reflection is not a real entity. When you stand before the mirror, it is you that is seen, even though two entities seem to be there. Similarly, the buddhi is made up of such a subtle substance that it is able to reflect or manifest this consciousness, and therefore consciousness appears reflected here. Wow.
There was an example in the last chapter, the rays coming to in the dark room, or the rays coming into the onto the pot where is a water and it get reflected. Two examples were there.
Hmm. So our buddhi is very has this subtle substance. So consciousness, the Atma is reflected in our buddhi, the same consciousness. But it is only a reflection. It is not real. But we mistake that as the real Atma. And that's why we identify it as I think, I feel, I know, like that. Because we are attaching it to the buddhi. This is my take. Though Atma has no form, we feel its presence through our buddhi. Because buddhi has the ability to reflect the consciousness, the Atma. Though the reflection is not real, but due to ignorance, we get stuck to that. We attach the I Atma to that. Am I right in thinking like that? Okay, I'll read further. Because of the reflection of the consciousness alone, the body, the mind, and senses are conscious. The I thought, aham vritti, see, which is the buddhi, becomes conscious because it reflects the consciousness of the self, and so too this thought, idham vritti, in the mind. Then again, because the mind is in association with the sense organs, they also become conscious. When the senses become conscious, the body becomes conscious because one sense organ, the sense of touch, is all over the body. Through the sense of touch, the whole body becomes aglow with consciousness, like an iron ball becomes aglow with the brilliance and heat of fire. Atma does not need to be known to you as conscious and existent by any other means of knowledge. It is already evident. The only problem is that because consciousness, which is the nature of Atma, pervades the entire body, people think body is Atma. Because consciousness is present in this body, if you touch the body, actually it is Atma you are touching. Though the body is inert, jada, in both the hand that touches and the hand that you are touching, there is consciousness. Because Atma is there, you are there. There is no difference between the reflection of consciousness, abhasha, and consciousness, Chaitanya. Though the reflection, abhasha, is consciousness, while consciousness, Chaitanya, is not a reflection, is not the reflection. Therefore, in the physical body, the reflection, abhasha, there is Chaitanya.
Abhasa.
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 Abhasa. There is Chaitanya. That is the Atma. This is why Shankara says that people in general who have not inquired into the Shastra and therefore do not have any discrimination think that the physical body alone is Atma. Without any vichara, inquiry, the body is taken to be the Atma, and that is natural because the body, Deha, is conscious. It is very natural to conclude that this conscious body is me and everything else is other than myself. How can you say Atma is unknown? In fact, the body is not really taken to be Atma. It is only because of the consciousness there that I look at the body and say, this is me. What I identify myself as is nothing but the conscious being. Therefore, that consciousness, which is the Atma, is known already. The problem with taking the Atma to be the body alone is that it is going to be subject to aging, illness, and death as the body is. This conclusion is due to lack of discrimination, aviveka. Since Atma is already known, but wrongly, we have to do the negation of all that it is not in the form of neti neti. Then, whatever remains as the innermost self, Pratyag Atma, is told to be Brahman. I am Atma Brahma. That is the teaching, Upadesha, wherein the cognition, the vritti that Atma is Brahman removes ignorance and goes away. Once the vritti has removed ignorance of the Atma, you do not need a special vritti to know Atma, for Atma is always present in any vritti. Only the Chaitanya, the consciousness that is reflected in the vritti is called jnana. Only consciousness that is reflected in the vritti is called jnana. It is important to understand here that the vritti itself is not jnana. Even when we talk of pot knowledge, knowledge belongs to consciousness alone because the knowledge aspect is consciousness. Vati. The qualifying is done by a name and form, nama rupa. Therefore, every vritti has the presence of consciousness. In the knower consciousness, knowledge consciousness, known consciousness, in all the three, one consciousness alone is present. Therefore, there is no way of missing Atma at any time. Very beautiful. So this, we have to be so aware of this knowledge all the time, that in every thought there is consciousness, and that consciousness is knowledge, is the knowledge. But we miss that, no? Or at least I miss that. We get caught up in those thoughts and we try to do something, analyze all that, plan, but we miss the consciousness, we miss the Chaitanya, which is jnana. So again, go back to Ramana Maharshi. Who is getting this thought? Who is thinking like this? Who am
Neti
I?
Neti was one of the solution he has told, no? Here, Neti Neti.
Hmm.
Means everything is the play of Ajnana and five elements. Because senses, every vritti is because of the elements again. What you see, what you touch, everything.
So we have to keep applying this knowledge, this neti knowledge. And that comes
Can
with
anyone
practice.
explain, Hariom? Can anyone explain like there's a bit confusion about this vritti and consciousness. Like you have it is like every vritti there is the presence of consciousness that we understood, but again that with the help of this vritti, you gain that jnana, right? But they have
Yes,
written that vritti itself is not jnana, but
yes.
like some confusion is there, like no much of clarity is not there.
Vritti is tendency. Am I right? Thought,
Yeah,
tendency.
yeah. Not vritti is the knowledge which you have, like that the pot. As soon as you say the pot, a picture of pot comes. That is this. That is the vritti of the pot. So that
Vritti
is
is
the
thought.
knowledge you are having. Yeah, that the thought which identifies with that object of that particular vritti. If an object is having a vritti, then as soon as like it is said like an apple, that the thought comes that apple is like this. So this is the vritti. So vritti
Sumaji,
has.
can you read the previous paragraph where the vritti word started coming?
Or we can read again also, I think this, if everyone says.
I'll read from here. Reflection of the consciousness alone. The body, mind, and senses are conscious. From here, I'll read. The I thought.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
The I thought, aham vritti, which is the buddhi, becomes conscious because
You
it.
can read from Hariom. Somaji, you can read from the main heading also. If even if Atma cannot be objectified,
Ah, yeah.
existence is a small paragraph. Yeah.
Yeah. Even if Atma cannot be objectified, its existence is well known. Shankara answers this in the following manner. He says that the conclusion that has been reached is not true. While it is true that Atma is not available for objectification, its presence is available. It is known to you because it is self-evident. It is present in the mind, buddhi, which has the capacity to reflect consciousness, which is Atma. The whole argument of the opponent here is on the basis of Atma not being an object because it has no form. True, it has no form, but it exists. In spite of not being an object and having no particular attribute, still it exists. How do we know this? Like your face in a mirror. The consciousness, that is Atma, is reflected in the buddhi because it is made up of a subtle substance that has the capacity to reflect consciousness. So buddhi is a subtle substance that has the capacity to reflect consciousness. The reflection or manifestation.
Buddhi has settled off. Can you read that sentence again? Buddhi has.
The Buddha. Okay. How do we know this? Okay, true, the Atma has no form, but it exists. In spite of not being an object and having no particular attribute, still it exists. How do we know this? Like your face in a mirror. The consciousness that is Atma is reflected in the Buddhi because it is made up of a subtle substance that has the capacity to reflect consciousness.
Yeah, buddhi, because it is made up of subtle substance. Buddhi is also made up of subtle substance that
I
has the
think
capacity
buddhi or
to
it,
reflect
it, it should be mind, no, not buddhi. Both.
No, buddhi, because mind is perceiving, and buddhi is the one that
Okay.
makes that
Which
decision. No?
reflects. Okay.
Yeah, up to
Discretion.
the self, everything comes under the influence of five elements. Even if in the form of tanmatra, up to the ego, everything comes under the prakriti only. That is, prakriti means five elements. Maybe in the subtler aspects of our existence, more and more akasha tattva is there, but still it is element, right? Akasha is the element ultimately. So up to the self, everything is uh, influenced by the five elements for sure.
up to the self. No, it's
Up to
because of
ego.
the ajnana we are getting that five elements, and we are feeling that five elements and everything. So the between that is the ajnana.
Yeah, so
Up to ego.
up
Up to
to
ego,
ego,
because
up to the self means up to the ego. Self is, of
Yeah,
course,
okay.
realizing, identifying yourself with God, but still identifying, still that separation is there. When you completely dissolve that sarvam khalvidam brahma, it happens. First, it is tattvamasi, that is the knowledge from the guru. Then aham brahmasmi.
Little louder, madam.
Aham brahma. First is tattvamasi. Tattvamasi. Can you hear me? Tattvamasi
yeah, it is
is
very
first.
faint, a bit faint. You come closer to the mic.
Okay, now it's better. Now it's better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
first is tattvamasi, and then aham brahmasmi, and then sarvam khalvidam brahma. Everything is Brahman only. The steps of realization. So till that, up to ego, everything is influenced by five elements. No? That is called Prakriti and Purusha. So it is in the influence of Maya, that is Prakriti. Ego is also Maya, no? Feeling the separation.
So, the consciousness that is Atma is reflected in the Buddhi because it is made up of a substance, of a subtle substance that has the capacity to reflect consciousness. The reflection or manifestation of consciousness in the Buddhi is non-separate from consciousness that is Atma. This is the reflection and the Atma are one and the same. This is because the reflection and the Atma are one and the same. There is no reflection which is totally separate from the Vastu because the reflection is not a real entity. When you stand before the mirror, it is you that is seen, even though two entities seem to be there. Similarly, the Buddhi is made up of such a subtle substance that it is able to reflect or manifest this consciousness. And therefore, consciousness appears reflected there in the Buddhi. Gurudev says, no, a vritti, a thought is a bolt of energy and intelligence. This intelligence is buddhi, and energy is the flow of consciousness. And that is a thought. and it happens in our buddhi. So that is why the buddhi has that subtle substance which can reflect consciousness. That's why Uttarer Atmanatmanam, that same thing. We have to lift our mind with our own mind. And in that it says Atma. Mind is Atma, it says. Bhagavan says. So going beyond this knowledge is also through that vritti only. Only the vritti can bring this knowledge and help us go beyond this knowledge. So we need the mind, we need the buddhi for the knowledge to come alive, for understanding. Because of the reflection of the consciousness alone, the body, mind, and senses are conscious. The I thought, aham vritti, which is the buddhi, becomes conscious because it reflects the consciousness of the self, and so too this thought, idham vritti, in the mind. This thought. So everything, it is happening in the mind. So that is why we have to cleanse the mind first of all for the knowledge to dawn. And that knowledge comes through vritti only. So we need this vritti. Then again, because the mind is in association with the sense organs, they also become conscious, isn't it? Because mind, what does the mind do? Perceives the world through the sense organs. So once mind has got the ability to reflect consciousness, the sense organ which is associated with the mind, they also become conscious. When the senses become conscious, the body becomes conscious because one sense organ, the sense of touch, is all over the body. Through the sense of touch, the whole body becomes aglow with consciousness, like an iron ball becomes aglow with the brilliance and heat of fire. Atma does not need to be known to you as consciousness and existent by any other means of knowledge. So Atma does not need to be known to you as consciousness and existent by any other means of knowledge. It is already evident. The only problem is that because consciousness, which is the nature of Atma, pervades the entire body, people think body is Atma. So this is our ignorance, our wrong identification. Because consciousness is present in this body, if you touch the body, actually it is Atma you are touching. Though the body is inert, jada, in both the hand that touches and the hand that you are touching, there is consciousness. Because Atma is there, you are there. There is no difference between the reflection of consciousness, abhasa, and consciousness, Chaitanya. Though the reflection, abhasa, is consciousness, while consciousness, Chaitanya, is not the reflection. Therefore, in the physical body, the reflection, abhasa, there is Chaitanya. That is the Atma. That is why Shankara says that people in general who have not inquired into the Shastra and therefore do not have any discrimination think that the physical body alone is the Atma. Without any vichara, inquiry, the body is taken to be Atma, and that is natural because the body, Deha, is conscious. It is very natural to conclude that this conscious body is me and everything else is other than myself. How can you say Atma is unknown? So we have that knowledge. But the attachment is to the body. Atma's attachment, we attach it to the body. That is ignorance. So with inquiry only it can be cleaned up. So we are on the right place. In fact, the body is not really taken to be Atma. It is only because of the consciousness there that I look at the body and say, this is me. What I identify myself as is nothing but the conscious being. Therefore, that consciousness, which is the Atma, is known already. The problem with taking the Atma to be the body alone is that it is going to be subject to aging, illness, and death as the body is. This conclusion is due to lack of discrimination, aviveka. Since Atma is already known, but wrongly, we have to do the negation of all that it is not in the form of neti neti. So Atma does not age, have illness and death. So we have to do this neti neti. Then whatever remains as the innermost self, Pradyak Atma, is told to be Brahman. I am Atma Brahma. That is the teaching, Upadesha, wherein the cognition, the vritti, that Atma is Brahman, removes ignorance and goes away. So this also we can understand only through the thought, by this negation. So that process, so we understand that Atma is Brahman only through a vritti, but a cleansed vritti. So that's when ignorance goes away. Once vritti has removed ignorance of the Atma, you do not need any special vritti to know Atma, for Atma is always present in any vritti. So even in ignorance, Atma is present, consciousness is present. So through inquiry, we clean, get rid of ignorance. This inquiry is also through vrittis only. So once we have got that ignorance removed, we don't need any special vritti to know Atma. So beautiful. For Atma is present in any vritti. Only the Chaitanya, the consciousness that is reflected in the vritti, is called jnana. So precious, this statement. Only the consciousness, Chaitanya, that is reflected in the vritti is called jnana. It is important to understand here that the vritti itself is not jnana. So Gurudev said, no, vritti is bolt of energy and intelligence. So just the thought is not jnana, but the Chaitanya, consciousness is jnana. The consciousness that comes with the flow of thought, that is jnana. So that is why we have to have that heightened awareness. Even when we talk of pot knowledge, knowledge belongs to consciousness alone. Knowledge belongs to consciousness alone because the knowledge aspect is consciousness. That bhati, asti bhati, no? Bhati. Because the knowledge aspect is consciousness. The qualifying is done by a name and form, namarupa. Therefore, every vritti has the presence of consciousness. In the knower consciousness, knowledge consciousness, known consciousness, in all the three, one consciousness alone is present. Therefore, there is no way of missing Atma at any time. I feel so grateful for this knowledge. So much of ignorance. I mean, we do so many things in ignorance. But to hold on to this awareness of this consciousness is the effort that we need to put in, the Purushartha. Intellectually, we can understand this, but to live it, that knowledge consciousness, knower consciousness, and known consciousness, to live that is the challenge. Please share your understanding.
It is like when from deep sleep we wake up. In deep sleep, there is no body consciousness. But the moment that Rajas kicks in and then we wake up, we start experiencing the body. We start getting thoughts, and that it is like consciousness is there, but it is not reflected. So, but when it starts reflecting, that is when we are able to perceive the body and feel sensations and feel the thoughts, and everything happens. So, and then the fact is that consciousness pervades through, in and through every cell in the body. That is why wherever you touch, when you're conscious, when you're awake, you'll be able to feel your body. And the reason why we attribute the take the body as ourselves is because it pervades through the body, it pervades through the mind, through everything, through our thoughts that we get, through the decisions we make, even the ego that we feel hurt and humiliated and feel elated. In and through all of that pervades consciousness. It's just that all of these have a birth and therefore a death. Whereas consciousness is ajaha, it is without a birth and therefore is eternal. So realizing that which is eternal, which does not have a birth, which is not perishable, that becomes Atma Jnana. That is the Jnana Nishta. If we wrongly identifying ourselves with the matter equipments that consciousness pervades. That is why we feel small. That's why we feel alpajnaha, kinchignaha. Whereas Atma is sarvajnaha, sarvavyapi. So the whole journey is from becoming somebody to nobody to everybody. Where you feel one with everything, one with. So there is an element of neti there, but ultimately you realize that you're the only one that is existing. That Advaita, which is the only one that pervades in and through. And even this vritti jnana, that it is the jnana that gives that vritti its existence, so to say. Otherwise, there is no vritti. It is just a matter of some words. But how is it enlivened? It's enlivened by this consciousness, and that therefore that vritti gets its jnana. And then just like that Jalam Kataka Renuvata, with this vritti jnana, that Aham Brahmasmi, or that, even that is a vritti, even that is an object. You are able to perceive it. So if that cannot be it, but when even that, ultimately even that falls off, it kind of settles down, leaving you with just that knowledge, that realization that you are nothing but that limitless, unborn, eternal, scintillating consciousness.
Should we stop here for today?
Yes, please, we'll stop here. We can't beyond. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.
निरुपमनित्यनिरंशकेऽप्यखण्डे मयि चिति सर्वविकल्पनादिशून्ये घटयति जगदीश जीवभेदम् त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया श्रुतिशतनिगमान्तशोधकानपि अहधनादिनिदर्शनेन सद्यः कलुषयति चतुष्पदाद्यभिन्ना न घटितघटना पडीयसी माया सुखचिदखण्डविबोधमद्वितीयम् वियदनलादिविनिर्मित्ते नियोज्य भ्रमयति भवसागरे नितान्तम् त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया अपगतगुणवर्णजातिभेदे सुखचितिविप्रविडाद्यहङ्कृतिं च स्फुटयति सुतदारकेहमोहम् त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया विधिहरिहरविभेदमप्यखण्डे बत विरचय्य बुधानपि प्रकामम् भ्रमयति हरिहरविभेदभावान् घटितघटना पडीयसी माया त्वघटितघटना पडीयसी माया